how everybody is using it. And just a couple of examples, and I'm sure like you've already heard the different talks, I'm just going to touch upon that. One is how it supports growth and innovation with all the examples that we've seen in the sessions. Similarly, how it is an essential part of decision making. I guess we as a society and as the one who delivers service have realized and adopted the importance of data over the past, say, 2 decades or so, from where we've come a long way in terms of our maturity. And we're at a point where we don't really need to state the obvious, right? It is very clear to us in how many ways we use the data, and it is even an essential part of our service delivery, just as we were listening to some of the solutions that was adopted by the city of Moncton this morning. Okay, let's talk about the BC Data Catalogue. The BC Data Catalogue is the central repository for all the different entities within BC government, whether it is ministries and organizations within BC government, and for Crown corporations to be able to use the platform to share the data with a broader audience. Essentially, it is a tool to kind of communicate and inform the audience about what data is available and the information around the data. We have an assortment of data that is available within the catalog. You can find data about natural resources, economic data, about education, health, etc. Again, given that we as a government entity have a broad presence and offer a broad range of services, naturally, the data that we hold is also of a wide variety. And that is the landing page of our BC Data Catalog. Nice and simple and clean interface, mimicking Google, let's say, just so that it's easy for users to kind of interact with it and find the data that they are looking for. Okay, let's do a quick pulse check in the audience, because I really want to keep you guys awake. Okay, how many of you in the audience have used the BC Data Catalog? Let's show a raise of hands. Wow. Now I'm scared about the Q&A at the end of this. Okay. How many of you know that it contained more than just open data? Show of hands. Okay, I think that's a good sample that I can work with for the rest of the presentation. Okay, one more question, because again, I really want to keep you awake. What do you think is the most popular data set in the catalog? Anybody? Yes? Okay, maps and fires, good guess. Sorry, Colin, what was it? Trap lines, okay. Educated guess. Sorry? Property assessment, very good guess. Huh? Baby names, that should be interesting. I'd love to see that. You have saved me the hours and hours me and my wife spent trying to come up with our name for our baby. Okay, I'm going to hand this over to E now to give us the magic answer.
Yeah, so according to our GDX team, the Government Digital Experience team, based on the page views of our catalog, there are 2 data sets that are very close. I'm going to tell you them both. So you're right, it's about very related to property assessment. It's about map. It's a parcel map fabric in the catalog. That's the number 1. Number 2, just a couple of views behind is the public service employee wage disclosure.
I'm sure that spurred a lot of interest. Sounds good. Okay, so let's talk about the primary 2 stakeholders with the catalog, right? The providers and the consumers. Let's start with the providers, right? Why should providers use the platform? For one reason, it provides a broad exposure to their data. I mean, like, honestly, if you look at, say, different companies on the data that they host, typically what you do is you end up trying to host it on your own website and hope that it gets picked up by the people who are trying to look up for it. But you have a common platform, you can actually have a much broader exposure to the people who are trying to visit it, and you can use different keywords in making your data more visible so that you can reach to a much broader audience. And from a user perspective, for one reason, it is very simple and easy because there is a standardized process to create your metadata record that provides the information about your data. So if you want to describe it, you don't have to come up with creative ways in trying to make sure that you communicate the information and make it more accessible and visible with the web search tools. Rather, you can use more of a standardized process and keep it nice and simple for your staff to kind of do it for the first time and maintain it over the course of time. And not to mention, there are different access types that we are going to talk about in a few slides. I'm just going to preserve this for secrecy just to have your interest until we get there. But beyond that, it's searchable so that others can find out what data is available, just like how I was touching upon that with the exposure. So you don't, the biggest advantage is almost often in cases, right, we are trying to look up for information because we have a purpose, right? We're trying to build a new program or looking into some insights, or even if you're a news organization coming up with stats that you can present, you might be looking for a different variety of data out there. But then rather trying to contact each and every organization, figure out what they have, and get that data. If you have a platform where some more standard data sets are readily available for you to consume, it saves a lot of time and effort. Okay, enough with all the chit-chat. What about some facts? So in the BC Data Catalog, we have more than 3,000 data sets. 3,200 plus is the latest count. 176 publishers have participated with us. From a user perspective, we have more than 10,000 search terms that were used to find the data. That speaks to you about the magnitude of data that we have, right? The variety of it and the different search terms people are using trying to find that. Not to mention, on an average, we get about close to 25,000 visits per month. And since 2019, we had more than 300,000 data orders wherein somebody as a user can submit a request and will be able to download data that they've requested for. And beyond that, it's just, with the way the catalog is positioned, it is like a corporate data catalog because it contains a variety of information that a variety of users can find and access. But the more important thing that we need to remember at all times is you can have all the data that you have, but if it's locked up for good, not connected to anything, or not visible, it's very hard to find. So it's one thing to have the data, but it's more important to make sure that that data is accessible so people can find it and use it. So listing data increases the visibility, which makes it easier for people to find it and thereby promoting adoption and use of data that you have. I have one more poll here. Let's see. What kind of access do you think the catalog provides? Anybody? I put you to sleep already, eh? Okay. Did I hear an answer somewhere? Download, okay. That's an interesting one. Okay, let's probably step back a little bit and look at the different layers. So when we talk about data, there's two aspects to it, right? Who can access it and what you can do once you access it. So in terms of who can access it, we still have a whole variety of data that is still listed as public, which means any user who can access the BC Data Catalog will be able to find the data that they are looking for. About 202,770 data sets are listed as public. There are a few selective number of data sets that are, let's say, protected. By that, what we mean is either only government users are able to access it, which the number, as you can see on the screen, is a little more than 500, or named users, which is about 144. Now, a quick question. What makes that kind of data restricted or protected, like only government or named users have to access it? Any guesses?
Sensitive data.
Good answer, thank you. Yes, data that is sensitive. And let's touch upon that just a little bit real quick, okay? What does sensitive data mean? Let's say, for example, you're talking about the habitat regions of endangered species, right? That is data that typically government has. But is that something that should be public? Well, maybe it's better if it's protected, but having the metadata listed so that if anybody is looking for it, is able to find it, is more important. Because that sensitive data is still visible with its metadata record being open. And similarly, another quick example I'll touch upon is, say, sensitive archaeological sites or something like that. So there's a lot of information that is protected for very good and valid reasons. But again, having the platform and the ability for the platform to showcase that data as being available with an organization or an entity makes it easy for whoever is trying to find it to be able to contact them and get access to the data that they are looking for. The second point is copyright. So we in the BC government have an open government license that all the ministries are encouraged to adopt if their data is compatible with the open government license. So what you can do under an open government license, and I have to look this up because I don't remember all the things that you can do, is copy, modify, publish, translate, adapt, distribute, and otherwise use the information in any medium or form for lawful purpose. So you get to do more with the data. So you can kind of, slice and dice, play with it as long as it is listed under an open government license. There are certain data that are listed as access only, which means in this case, unless you have a written permission from the authoritative entity who is sharing the data with you, you cannot do all of the things that you can do under an open government license. Now, again, a quick question. Any guess on what sort of data is access only? You guys touched upon this earlier on in one of your answers. Personal is a whole different ballgame. I'm not going to touch that now. Let's say, property boundaries, right? As E pointed out, one of the more famous ones is the BC assessment data. Can you modify a property boundary? I don't think so. So it's one of those data sets that have to be used or preserved in its original form as people are using to adapt it. But of course, if they have a valid reason what they want to do with it, they can always reach out to the publishing organization and explain their case and work with them to see if they have a written permission to do what they want to do with the data. Oh, sorry. Okay, before we go into the catalog in action, what we are trying to do here is to showcase 4 completely made up but very close to real scenarios that we are trying to share with you. So this represents the different personas that we encounter on a day-to-day basis and what sort of data that they might be looking for and what their experience would look like. Okay. Before I share the 4 scenarios with you, another question. Okay, what do you think people are using the catalog for? Finding data is a very accurate statement. Yes, business development is very good. Research is very good. Redistribution, yes. In some cases, yes. So that's 3 out of my 4 scenarios right there. So let's look at the 4 scenarios that we've put together for this presentation. Number 1, a startup company looking to access data for a business purpose. A student looking to access data for a research purpose. A firm looking to reproduce data that they can consume and distribute on a frequent basis. And the final, and let us not forget, a public user who can still find some very good information on the catalog. So at this point, I'm going to request E's help to navigate the actual catalog while I walk the audience through its features. Okay, let's start with the first scenario. And just to quickly recap, in this scenario, I am a company trying to build a listing for BC businesses that are owned by Indigenous people so that I can provide that information to users in a mobile application. So I'm building it for a business purpose. And in this case, the person or that company would come in, try to find the information that is available, and voila, here we have a BC Indigenous Business Listing dataset that is published by the Regional and Inclusive Economic Recovery Branch. So you have the authoritative agency here who owns and has shared the data with us. We have a nice little description about what that data is. License is open government license. If you remember, what you can do with that is you can consume that information for your purpose. Yes? Oh, it's probably a little bit too much. How's that? Okay. Perfect. So again, I'm just going to quickly repeat. So what you have in there is the title that is used by the user to find the data set that they're looking for, published by the entity that owns the data set, with a nice little description about what the data contains, with a license that is an open government license. And on the right side here, you have a whole bunch of different resources that you can consume to get the data that you are looking for. So what we have here is a CSV listing, a HTML, a WMS, KML, and a custom download from the warehouse itself. If you come to the right, left-hand side, sorry, and if we come back to the metadata record, so at the bottom here, what we have is some key information such as security classification, in this case public. So anybody who is public is able to view this data, download this data, and view this record. And then there are some of the keywords that typically users might use to find the data that they are looking for. And in this case, this data was first created in 2016 August. And last modified, and as far as the metadata record is concerned, is in 2023 June, fairly recent. And if we go back to the different resources that are attached to this data set, each one of them has the information about the resource. So if we just pick the first one in there and look for it, you can see that there is another description about the resource so that it explains better. And as far as the resource is concerned, in this case, the CSV file was last updated in October 2021. Again, 2 years, not too bad. And in this case, if I am a business and I'm looking to check with the publishing authority, hey, I see that the CSV file is last updated in 2021. Maybe is that the only resource that is available, or if I access something else, is that more recent? Or can you guys share with us if you have a more updated version and what is your frequency? They can go back to the metadata record and then they can find out who to contact. In this case, somebody from the Regional and Inclusive Economic Recovery Branch. So that way, they can find information about the data and they can find out the entity that is publishing it so they can connect with them and have a conversation about the data that is listed in here. And that's why metadata is so important. I think one of our colleagues yesterday also shared the importance of it in their session. It is the information that helps the user to understand the data better and use that as a communication tool to connect with the people who are publishing it, thereby bringing the publishers and the consumers closer together. Let's look at scenario number 2. In this case, I am a university researcher, and I'm going to just pause for a second. I'm a university researcher looking for information on wildlife habitat areas. This typically would be a sensitive data set because, again, wildlife habitat is typically something that is not shared for public users. We're just going to wait for a second. So they want to use that information to do some analysis for their research. So what that person who is external to the government in this case is going to do is to come in here and look for wildlife habitat areas. And they're going to come across this data set that is approved and secure in published state. And they can see that the entity that published it is the Wildlife Habitat and Species Recovery. And in this case, if you recognize the difference, it is access only. What that means is they are not allowed to copy, modify, or otherwise distribute it for their research purpose from the license itself. But they can contact the wildlife species inventory team, explain what they're trying to do, and get a written authorization so that they have access to the data and are able to use it for their research purpose. Whatever the process that the entity would have for a limited share of access, they will be able to share their process with the researcher, and then get them to agree to the agreement, whether it is an end user license agreement or something else, whatever the process they might have. And then thereby, they can make sure that the sensitive data is shared in a controlled manner with the people who need it. But with the listing being available on the platform makes it easy for the people to find it so that they can connect with whoever they need to connect and get access to the data that they are looking for. Sorry? Yes, yes. So there's two last updated. So one is when the metadata record is updated, which is available on the metadata record page. So if we just go back to the any data set, and if you scroll to the bottom, that is the last modified as far as the metadata is concerned. So even as the data evolves, the metadata record gets revised and updated, and then they can know when was the last time it was updated and what it contains. If you go down to the resource that is attached to the data, in this case, because it is sensitive, export is not available. But if you just scroll down, typically you would know that the resource was last updated fairly recently, 20th of this month. What is it today? 24th, so just 4 days ago. So that way they can also know like how recent the data is. And thereby, they can also, when they reach out to the entity, they can kind of, use that information to see if there has been a few months or something like that. They can see if more recent data is available, depending on the type of data and the frequency where it gets updated. Okay, so far we've looked at two different scenarios. One, company looking to use the data for a business purpose, and a researcher looking for data that is sensitive and secure. Now we're looking at a third scenario wherein I am a consulting firm looking for to offer geospatial data services. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm looking to consume the data and provide it, say, as a service to one of our many clients. So I'm looking for something more advanced than just trying to find the data and download the data. So in this case, what features are available for any user? Not user, in this for the company. So let's look at any one of these different data sets. Yes, that is a good one. So in this case, it is a notice of work, spatial locations, public. As you can see, we randomly picked it out from the list. But it has some good information about regional mines, I guess. But basically, think of this as a company that is looking to download this data and provide it to many companies that might be in BC that are looking to consume their service. So what they can do is they can access the geographic warehouse custom download feature, wherein with this feature, you are able to access the data warehouse and put in a custom order request for the data that you're trying to select and download. You can select your system, format, area of interest, and then once you put your email address, you will be sent a link to your email from where you will be able to download the custom order that you put in here. So this is like the way to slice and dice the data. Yeah, so E, do you want to give it a quick try about the email? And one other feature along with this is when you get access to the download feature, it is not just the UI that you can use, there is also an embedded API that you can use to kind of put forward that request and download on a consistent basis. So there is the front-end UI that the users can use if they choose to do so. There is the API feature that is also available should they choose to do it and connect it to their system automatically. Yes, that is an example of how your request response would look like. And if you have an API, this is very valuable information for you that you can use and automate as per your interest. Moving along, let's go down to our last scenario, a public user. What would a public user do with the catalog? Okay, so in this case, I have an example, but there are many examples that we've actually come across, and it was a hard choice, but let's start with this one. I am a parent looking for information on ministry-funded and licensed childcare facilities in my city. I have a bunch of different criteria that are critical to me, and then basically I'm looking for information. Now, I have a 5-year-old, and when she was a newborn, the first thing I did was to try to look up and register for a childcare facility in my town that is Spit Meadows. Now, what I typically did at that point back in the day was to look into Google, search for different childcare facilities, look at the ones that are available, call each and every one of them, find out the information on what is available, what their timings are, what their fees are, yada, yada, before I was able to land on something that I can register, that is close to my home, and is flexible with the timings that I am looking for. How easy is that? Yes. So what if I had access to the data wherein I can figure out what licensed childcare facilities are available in my town, wherein I can look at the hours of service that is available, and in this case, as we've seen, right, they're also looking at a particular service offering in French, and if I remember, they're also looking at a facility that can provide both for under 36 months because they have a different student to teacher ratio, and from 36 months to 5 years, and in some cases, providing services beyond school hours if they graduate to kindergarten. So if there is a spreadsheet wherein I can download and filter, I will be able to easily find all of that information I'm looking for, selectively look at the ones that might fit my bill, and then reach out to them rather than do the fun little call the daycare thing that I've done 5 years ago. So as a public user, again, there is some very good information that is available that they can access, definitely. And just another example, I guess I'm just trying to remember, would be cooperative housing. That is available in the catalog. So there's different data sets that might be of interest to different people. But definitely, even if you're a public user, you don't have to be an advanced data user to always come and find what you're looking for. As a public user, there's also some very good information that they can look for. And coming back to the summary. Yes, what have we seen so far? So from a provider perspective, there is a lot of benefit in having their data listed on the catalog because they can control it, they can communicate the details, and hey, we never talked about what it is powered by. It is powered by CCAN, and just for those of you who are interested, the underlying product is CCAN that is connected through an API to our custom UI, which is why, again, our UI looks slightly different and more simplified, user-friendly, modeling it from Google, but it uses an API to connect to the CCAN product that powers our catalog from the backend. So from a user perspective, data catalogs make it easy to find and access data because they can look at different data sets that are available in the catalog. They can look at it by different ministries or entities and all the data sets that are attached to them so that they can find a variety of data that they might be looking for. Metadata provides a lot of good information wherein they can learn about their data as they are trying to access it. So thereby, they're not guessing it, trying to find out what the limitations are, but rather providers can use that platform to communicate that upfront, and users can learn about the data as they are trying to access it. And it also helps with a wide range of scenarios, the few of them that we've just touched upon, and not to mention the many that we've heard across different sessions today. And that is our BC Data Catalog. I would like to invite all of you to, again, continue to visit us and access us and reach out to us if you do have any questions. Thank you. Okay, I guess we can open the floor for any Q&A for the next 5 minutes or so.
Hi there. That's great. Anyone who's worked with me knows that I love Excel. But I guess I'm wondering for that member of the public who wanted to filter on the tabular data of childcare locations, which, that was a great use case. Is there a potential future state for the data catalog where they can, within the interface of the catalog itself, do some of the basic filtering and analysis and get their answer directly within the catalog rather than downloading a comma-separated values file, which might just be like, beyond, certainly a significant percentage of those who need childcare.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, yeah, just checking. Absolutely, and the answer is yes, and that's where working with our partners who are authoritative sources who publish the data, they also have complementary programs and applications that they get the funding on and kind of generate, and they can use the platform to get broader access to the applications that they are developing, so that in this case, if a member of the public is looking at, they don't really have to download the Excel if there is an attached application to it that they can access and thereby filter. So with the metadata right now in its current format provides the ability for users to use it to communicate such tools if they do have it. And we're definitely open to looking at additional features that we can expand upon to make it more and more user-friendly going forward.
Any more questions?
Thank you so much.